Hi, this is Denley Bishop, and I'm here to do my informative speech on the amount of injustice going on in society. Most people don't know that there's a lot of injustice going on in society until it happens to their family member. For instance, my pastor at First Baptist Church, Lakeland, Florida, his nephew was incarcerated. His wife stated in church that she called to find out how to get their nephew out, and she was told that if she had $10,000 that she would be able to have him released the next day with a motion to dismiss. I couldn't understand how a motion to dismiss with $10,000 was any different than a motion to dismiss with $500, because it's the same piece of paper, a motion to dismiss. But I guess it's the money that talks. My first case is Innocent Man. Innocent Man is a book that's written by John Grisham about a story about a guy that's not too far from Duncan, Oklahoma. It's Ada, Oklahoma. Ironically, the two cities are not too far away. So I guess injustice is pretty close. This guy was incarcerated for a crime he never committed. The guy was unusual, so basically the police decided they were going to incarcerate the guy because they thought he was different. There was a lot of pressure by the public to have a speedy conviction, and so they picked on this guy. While he was there, it took his attorney years and years for them finally to find the right guy that did it and for him to be released. John Grisham states the sadness of the fact is that usually when you try to sue the state for their negligence or false imprisonment, it's hard to get cases brought into the clerk's office, and that's what they found out in this case. Small town case, small town injustice. Another book that's similar to that one is Guilty by Popular Demand. It's a story of small town injustice. The appellate court said that there were several mistakes that were made in this case. Basically, hypnosis testimony was given, and that should not have been introduced. This was a landmark case in the fact that hypnosis testing can no longer be done, and that the laws are overturned now for that. Also, the FBI did not introduce evidence that showed that the boot prints of this man did not match the boot prints of the crime scene. And witnesses and testimonies were also shredded by the FBI. This is very common in small towns. They just shred evidence. They try to hide everything. Basically, the appellate court said that under pressure for speedy convictions, you cannot circumvent rules that protect people, innocent people. In an article, Small Town Injustice by David Ely, bccl.org, August 14, 2013, this guy pled to 4 to 15 years for a crime he never committed. The small town DA basically patted himself on the back and got his gold star. The judges in the town were friends with the cops, so now you kind of understand where that went. Basically, this was an old judge. He was friends with the cops, and he decided to put this guy away for no reason. That leads me to the issues of the JQC, Judicial Qualifications Commission. The Judicial Qualifications Commission is supposed to oversee judges. However, most of the people that sit on the JQC hunt and fish with the judges that the complaints are filed against. So that's why these don't go anywhere either. www.newyorktimes.com, September 26, 2006, William Glubson. Mr. Vedder went up against Judge Gorey. At the hearing, Judge Gorey told him that he had another week to supply more evidence. The defendants of the case didn't even show up to the hearing at all. When Mr. Vedder got home, several days later, he received a letter in the mail that said the case was dismissed. He couldn't figure out how a case could be dismissed when basically the defendants didn't even show up to the case. Well, later on, he found out that the judge had met with the defendants earlier and told the defendants that he was going to rule in favor of them. Kind of ironic. Small town injustice. This leads me also to Polk County, Florida. That's where I spent most of my time and suffered from severe injustice in that county. There's a case there. The guy's name was James Bain. Personally, me and my husband encountered this case. We were going to Florida for one of my own trials that I had going on there. When we travel a far distance, we turn the corner of Polk County Courthouse and there is the news press everywhere. This poor man that spent 35 years in jail for a crime he never committed was finally being released after the Innocence Project had got in on the case and helped him get released. The facts of the case were that he was convicted of a crime after being identified in a lineup. They say that most misidentifications in lineups are overruled by DNA evidence. However, this poor man couldn't get DNA evidence to be admitted. They say actually 75% of misidentifications are overruled by DNA evidence. This guy had 5 to 6 to 7 times had wrote to the court for DNA evidence to be presented, never got presented. He had wrote to the court asking that his own transcripts be sent back to him, which is what the Innocence Project said was the Supreme Court says you have a right to that. Never received anything back from the court on that either. Basically, the Innocence Project got involved. When the Innocence Project got involved, 8 months later, DNA evidence was introduced and he was released. The Innocence Project also noted that all of the times that he had wrote to the court asking for his transcripts, the reason that he received nothing back is that the court lost the documents. This is very typical of Polk County. Documents seem to disappear in Polk County. Okay. James was awarded $1.7 million for $50,000 for every year that he spent incarcerated. The Innocence Project's attorney said that's really not enough because you can't get your whole life back with your family. I wonder how many people are out there right now that this is happening to. I'm sure there's lots. But basically, I just wanted to address the issue to open your eyes. There's another case too in Duncan, Oklahoma. When we had moved here, a month before we got here, Aaron Brockovich had just left. Basically, Halliburton had contaminated all of the water within Duncan, Oklahoma. The wells, especially on Osage Road, were all polluted. She came to Duncan to join a class action lawsuit. I have met a girl here. Her and her son have liver cancer. She's a young girl with like 5 children, and so far her 10-year-old has tested positive for liver cancer. Her husband says that because the pollution in their well waters is not as high as it should be for the lawsuit, really they have nothing they can do about it. So I think in conclusion, all I wanted you guys to see is what's going on out there and that changes do need to be made and to open our eyes. I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure anyone knows what to do. But basically, the next time that you or your family member are dealt with the judicial system or the system at all, you might want to question whether or not what's happening to you is actually legal.